When Ryan's when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind to Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The A-Team that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night on USA. Now on the John and Wai take the mic.
Canadians, the drought continues.
Oh, man, I didn't even know.
Did you forget?
Wow. Well, I didn't check the score.
Oh. WWE had some balls to program a Miz and R-Truth title match against the final minutes of this game, a 2-1 game. I just said, screw it. If we're late for this show, we're late. I was watching the end of this. I was following this all night long, and then for this third period, it would be I was watching Raw I got up to live. So then commercials, I would go over to watch the game. And then it's literally the final minutes as we're into the final 10 minutes of Raw. And I'm like, I'm literally going back to watch a Miz comeback and R-Truth doing John Cena spots. Like, we could not have more of a dichotomy here. But yes, the Oilers came up short. But I mean, they were down 3-0 and they were within a goal here of pushing it forward. I can't say I'm terribly upset about this because a story you may not realize, Wai.
Are you kidding me? You're not upset about this? Oh my God. The person who cheers for the downfall of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Listen, I was
upset that a Canadian team would have lost.
I was not playing the outlier here going against the Oilers, but when I was 9 years old, my dad bought me a winter jacket and it was a brand new expansion era Florida Panthers winter jacket, and it had the giant panther on the back, and it was like the red and gold and like navy blue. And at the age of 9, I was like, well, I got to wear this thing. And I was like, the Panthers are now my team. No idea why my dad bought me a Florida Panthers jacket. I had no connection to Florida.
Probably on sale, I'm guessing.
That's what I believe was probably it. The expansion. You would think like an expansion team, the merchandise might be a little more in high demand, but not in Toronto. So I own this jacket, and I was just like, okay, I'm adopting John Van Beesbrook, Ed Jovanovski, and then the Panthers. Like, during my hockey fandom, they go to the finals against the Colorado Avalanche. Do you remember this? In 96? And the final game, they're down 3-0 going into game 4. And I'm realizing these Panthers are not turning things around. I was very realistic at this age of 12. And dude, they go into triple overtime. And that was where my love of this team was evaporating, because I was like, they are not going to win this series. But my God, are they taking a long time to lose it. And finally, the Colorado Avalanche score in triple overtime to sweep the Florida Panthers. And I had outgrown that jacket, and I had outgrown the Florida Panthers. And it was time to find a new team in the NHL. I almost found them. These Edmonton Oilers were they were chugging along. This would have been quite the story had they won. This is going to do an insane number in Canada. Like, this is going to be gigantic. Like, I was listening to a bunch of like radio shows today. Dude, there were people debating, is this the biggest game in the history of the NHL? And I'm definitely not qualified to participate in that discussion, but this thing was huge. If Edmonton had won this game, this country would have shut down tomorrow.
It's the biggest Canadian game in the history of the NHL, or just the history of the NHL?
They were arguing biggest game in the NHL, not in hockey history. There are like international games that probably have some more significance. Right. But this is pretty big. You know, it's been 30 years since a Canadian team won. But they lost. So, I mean, that's what, you gotta keep that carrot dangling in front of people.
Yeah.
Like, what are they going to do if they won? It's like, okay,
the money is in the chase, everybody.
That's
okay.
Listen to Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash knew what was up. We're going to talk about Kevin Nash on Tuesday. I'm sure we're going to work some Kevin Nash discussion in there.
Let this be WrestleMania 39, and then maybe next year, John, the Toronto Maple Leafs make a big comeback.
Dude, they're not
all the way to
Game 7. Playoffs next year. Are you kidding me?
Okay.
I think Mitch Marner's on the block. All right, that's our hockey discussion for the night. We have a ton to get into. Big return tonight on Rewind to Raw. One of our favorite clients is back, so just sit back and you will know it when it comes your way. Okay.
Jeez,
how are you?
Yeah, I know. Check for. I'm doing really well. Yeah. Are we on a bit of a delay? Are we knows?
I don't know. You sound okay to me.
Okay. Well, I think we'll struggle with it. We'll be fine. I'm good. I'm good. Blame it on the Wyatt 6, perhaps.
How's your car?
It's not great. No. So where did we leave off?
Well, on the show, you were telling me that you have been dealing with car
Let me tell you the
problems.
story, okay? Let me tell you the story, okay? So I have a Civic, and like the latest, like the 2016 generation Civics apparently have like a really bad air conditioning issue with it that's pretty much universal. You know, so universal that rather than issue any sort of recall, what they've done is issue an extended warranty, which drags like, the warranty life of a part, I don't know, up to 10 years. Like for most people, that's like the majority of the life of a car. So I'm like, okay, cool. My AC hasn't been working for like a year. Like I've had to struggle. My family, my poor baby has had to like, struggle without like proper air conditioning for quite a while. So I'm like, I'm going to take my car to the dealership. I'm going to get this free fix and life is going to be good again. Bring the car into the dealership. Wouldn't you know it? They call me back. We found the problem covered under warranty, but we also found this, and this that's unfortunately not covered by the warranty. It's going to cost you $600. And I'm like, give me my car back. I'm going to go another year without AC. Wife doesn't feel the same way. So decided to spend the $600. Okay, money well spent. Sure, I'll take the hit. They call me back.
Oh no.
We made those fixes, but we've taken the compressor out and we've discovered that it's no good. We can't even put it back in. So it's going to cost you $1,000 on top of what you're already going to pay. What am I supposed to do at that point? I can't leave my car. Got to pay these like crazy dealership prices. I pay $1,500, okay, on the spot because I have no other choice at that point. Wait a day. That's the other part of it. Like this thing is like half an hour away, like 50 minutes, if you're including traffic. And it's just like driving like such a wedge into my entire week that like my entire life's disrupted. Like I had to like, suspend like my actual work days in order to deal with this thing, wait for it, and then come back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I finally go back the next morning, pick up my car, new compressor put in there, start driving it. All right, cool air for 5 minutes, okay, and then it's just back to like heat. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Like, am I just like, have I forgotten what cold air feels like? Like, is this like what cold air is? I bring it back. They confirm that there's another issue with it, and that in fact my car isn't fixed. I have to bring it back the next day again. It's like 4 days now. I'm going back and forth, and then the latest time is when they tell me, you got to change the whole system. It's gonna cost you It's gonna cost you $2,000. At that point, I'm like,
here are the keys. Like, it's yours.
My car's not even worth that. Yeah, my car's not even like it's not even worth that much, or at least like it's not worth that much more than all the money I've already put into it. So today I brought it into like a non-dealership affiliated person who basically told me, like somebody I could trust through a family friend who I wish I kind of started this entire process with, but they basically confirmed, yes, your car needs a new AC system, and at this point, because the dealership has already started, it's best to go back to them to let them finish the job. Therefore, like if anything does go wrong, you can at least complain to them. I'm stuck, and that's why we're so thankful for this week's sponsors.
Well, we need like Apple or Auto Glass or something. We need a car sponsor for Wai. I'm sorry, Wai, that you're going through this.
Whoever can chip off some of the this bill for me, I'm very thankful for. But yeah, it sucks, and the weather's not helping at all.
It is hot out, as we have been conveying to people. But keep Wai in your thoughts. When I need to be uplifted, you know what I'm going to have on standby in my podcast library? It's going to be last week's wellness policy with Chardell Moore, which I listened to on the weekend, and I was ready to go like run a marathon after listening to this podcast. This was like the most inspiring interview you guys have ever conducted.
Well, thank you very much for bringing it up. I mean, I'm always impressed when you spend the time out of your busy schedule to listen to the wellness policy, which is, for people who don't know, the podcast I do with Jordan Goodman and Neil Flanagan about a lot of certainly non-wrestling related issues. But of course, this could be wrestling related. It's the topic of growth mindset, and Chardell Moore, a friend of Jordan Goodman's, was somebody I obviously wasn't familiar with before, but certainly inspired me. Like her energy is incredible, right, King?
King. I mean, it was a tremendous chat. I felt like I was just like sitting there with you guys. She's
great. Honestly awesome. Like seriously, somebody who has clearly accomplished a whole lot, and you listen to this podcast, you'll be inspired to probably start a new career yourself.
I listened to this and I listened to you, Nate, and Chris over the weekend. So I got to say, I think my favorite podcaster is you, Wai. I mean, there's a consistency here. I just follow you along. You're the one carrying me here. So, I mean, this is, maybe I'm holding you back. Maybe this is a whole world out there. This was quite the trip down memory lane to WrestleMania, the album that Chris, Nate, and Wai dissected. And it was rather funny because I listened to this, and then our next review is going to be WrestleMania 9.
Hold on a second. I hate to interrupt this lovely plug, but you are turning into Kylo Ren again. The return of Kylo.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll be back in an hour.
Okay. Apologies.
Go get my car fixed.
You know, the karma gods don't want me to have such a great day. You know, while John is endlessly heaping praise on some of my work over the past week, we had to interrupt it. But I will continue the plug here. This was Rewind Away as Nate Milton, Chris Ely of NWA podcast fame, and I went back and listened to WWE's WrestleMania, the album from 1993, featuring such classics as Slam Jam, the WrestleMania Linda McMahon theme song, which oddly enough begins with a soundbite of Gene Okerlund introducing us to the Survivor Series. We got Hacksaw Jim Duggan with USA, and I think maybe the classic ballad that every person should listen to after a breakup, Never Been a Right Time to Say Goodbye by Bret the Hitman Hart. Your thoughts on that particular song, John?
I'm going to break up with this microphone if it sounds terrible.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yes, this was quite the collection, and people bought this CD, which is remarkable.
Yeah. I don't know if it's such a lesser known fact these days, but Simon Cowell, actually an executive producer, and the people responsible for producing a good chunk of these songs are also the same people, very successful music producers, Stock Aitken and Stock and Waterman, who also did what, John? Test.
Were they involved in the early 90s dance scene?
Yes, I would say so. Sure.
I don't know. But I don't know what the answer is.
Okay. Oh, then I don't know if I truly believe that you actually listen. But it's fine. It's fine. They did Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley. As I was
you did mention this, yes. In one ear, out the other. I was just, I was in a low frequency. I was just taking in the information soothingly.
It's all good.
I wasn't packing it anywhere for recall. Well, a great job on your week of shows, Wai. All right, we are going to move on because we have a bunch of things to discuss. Want to quickly make note that on Tuesday, it's going to be our final day of Who Killed WCW. You can all submit your votes to the ballot box at the end of episode 4. We're going to be dropping an interview that we did with Evan Husney. So we're going to bookend our coverage with chats with Evan. We had him on before the series aired, and we're going to have him on Tuesday morning ahead of episode 4 to talk about some of the reception to the series, changes he would have liked to have made, and asking him as well something that like I brought up about not having reporters used, and he's going to give us his thought on where their philosophy was when it came to who was interviewed, who was not, and of course speaking with him about Jamie Kellner, who passed away over the weekend, and we will get to that in just a minute. And then Tuesday night on the Post Wrestling Cafe, as soon as the episode ends, you can refresh your Post Wrestling Cafe podcast feed, and you will get the latest episode, the last of this series, of this run of the Double Shot, with Wai and I going through our thoughts of episode 4 and a wrap-up of the 4 episode series.
Yeah, that'll come out right on your feeds at 11 p.m. Eastern time as soon as it premieres. I mean, depending on whenever you watch it, it's going to be right there in the Post Wrestling Cafe feed waiting for you.
So we mentioned Jamie Kellner, and this is just in crazy timing given the episode that is going to be airing on Tuesday, where he will be focused upon but is not involved in the episode, passing away over the weekend at the age of 77. It was Variety that reported his passing. He was a huge figure within the television industry. While wrestling fans are going to associate him most with the call that was made to drop WCW programming from the Turner networks in 2001, This was somebody that was instrumental in the launch of the Fox network, later the WB. He was involved in a lot of shows in terms of their launching, like The Simpsons, Married with Children. So he had like a lot of accolades. And with the WB network, he had an ownership stake in it. So he sold that stake in 2002. And by 2004, he was pretty much retired. Like that is like true, I'm out of here type of money that Jamie Kellner had by 2004. And all he had to do was like field requests over the years for discussions about WCW going out of business. And I will let Evan explain their answer that they received from Jamie Kellner. It didn't seem like he was up for a deep dive into WCW from 23 years ago. But yeah, Jamie Kellner was hired in March of 2001. This is right after the merger has been approved with AOL Time Warner. Spoiler, it doesn't go well. And Kellner's first major move is, he sees like there's kind of a deal that they have in principle for Fusion Media, which is led by Brian Badol and Eric Bischoff, to purchase WCW. And one of the keys is that they will have the television time slots. And what came out through the Nitro book by Guy Evans, which Kellner did do an interview with, and to my knowledge is the only interview Jamie Kellner has done about his WCW/Turner run, at least from the wrestling operation side and his decision making. And in that book, like Brian Badol explains that they were able to work in this stipulation into the contract where they would be able to buy WCW and with it come the time slots. But their concern was likely that, okay, we put in all of these millions to buy WCW and the assets and several of these bigger contracts. Well, what happens if 6 months from now, TBS just cancels wrestling and we're out all this money because without the TV, it's almost worthless to us. So they were able to work in this clause that they would own that particular time slot, a primetime slot for X amount of years. And Jamie Kellner seeing this was like, there is no way my first move, I can hand over a primetime slot to an outside company and they are programming a night of the week for us on one of our networks. And the question I would have had would have been, well, and only like a Brian Badol could answer this, but if this was going to be the killer of this deal, like would they have like taken that out, or would they have seen that as too much of a risk that like we don't know if Turner is going to back wrestling, and if we're going to spend millions on this thing and we lose the TV, like then what? There's no guarantee we can shop this elsewhere that anyone would be able to pick it up. We've got all these contract books. We'll have like this thing would not be making money immediately. So like that's part of the Jamie Kellner calculus in all of this as well. And at least to Guy Evans' book, I mean, he pushed back against the notion he was not a wrestling fan, stating he watched it growing up and he claimed it just came down to numbers with WCW. But that's, forever like his name, like he is ultimately the one that did make the call. So, I mean, that is going to be his legacy within professional wrestling. But I mean, his legacy in television was a lot bigger than WCW. I mean, this is not even a part of his, the stories that you're seeing written on him, but a very, very important figure, both in professional wrestling and television as a whole. So condolences regarding Jamie Kellner. Also want to quickly mention the passing of someone not as well known, but that was Keith Evans, who was with Triller TV, and he was an executive at the UFC for over a decade. He came in there in 95 and was there until 2006. So that's the Bob Meyerowitz era in SEG, and then he's there past the Tough explosion in 2005 and then left. So just think of what he lived through in the UFC, and he left in 06 and then he went to the IFL. And he was actually subject of a lawsuit from the UFC that believed he was taking trade secrets from the UFC and assisting with the IFL with them. He would later work with what is now the PFL when it launched as the World Series of Fighting, went to Go Fight Live, which is a well-remembered streaming site for professional wrestling fans. Remember Go Fight Live?
Of course I do. Yes.
Ring of Honor fans remember Go Fight Live. And then he had been with Triller TV until from 2016 onward as an executive there. So he died a week ago Sunday in his hometown of Henderson, Nevada. So unfortunate news there, as well as Günter Zapf, who was a long-standing pro wrestling and sports broadcaster in Germany. He was involved on the WWE German broadcast for almost 20 years. And somebody that was paired with Karsten Schaefer he was his main partner, and then was involved in a lot of sports, the NFL, Major League Baseball. He was doing AEW broadcast work in Germany on DMAX up until his passing. So he was 66 years of age. So a couple of passings there to note. But we'll move on over to some WWE news, and they confirmed a report that had come out last week from WrestleVotes and Indiana Sports Journal, and that is that they have announced a multi-year partnership with the Indiana Sports Corp to bring multiple events to Indianapolis, including future WrestleManias and SummerSlams, which were both listed as two-night events. So as we expected, SummerSlam will be moving to a permanent two-night format. And then this will kick off with the Royal Rumble next year that is set for February the 1st. And these three events will all be taking place at Lucas Oil Stadium. And this will also include other events, Raw, SmackDown, NXT in various cities throughout Indiana. They have not announced the length of the deal, although it was the Indiana Sports Journal had alluded to it being around a 7-year deal. But the big question is like how much money this is worth. But I would say, Wade, this is the template of what they want. Multi-year deals of bringing these big events to one city and utilizing this as sort of your guinea pig of what they want to be doing with the UFC, with the WWE, or both. And I'm certain this is a very lucrative deal that WWE is signing and bringing all of these events to Indianapolis.
I mean, other than Saudi Arabia, obviously, like, is this the biggest single deal that, I guess, for a live event that WWE has ever announced?
I mean, obviously, the combined amount has to be outside of Saudi Arabia just because of the volume of shows that this is going to bring. And we know sort of like the value of WrestleMania next year in Las Vegas, but that's a two-night event. Like, this is going to be compounded over years of shows, and you can see the idea of expanding SummerSlam to 2 nights. We know that, and they have not listed what years Mania and SummerSlam will be. Like WrestleMania, like we're probably looking years away, because it would be hard to imagine them doing the Rumble next year and then coming back so quick with another. Because you want to, the idea for Indianapolis is tourism, and if you were to travel for a Rumble, for instance, you're probably not coming back in August. So you would want these spread out. But my question to you, Wei, is like, are we that far away? I brought this up before, the idea of like 2-night Royal Rumbles. Like, are we that far away from that? Like, that is an event tailor-made to go 2 nights.
Yeah. They would do 2 nights, 3 nights, 4 nights, 7-night events if they were going to get paid for it, and if they were going to attract a big enough crowd.
We're basically getting 3 nights in Toronto next weekend. Like, it's all spread out, but I mean, this is like what they are doing. Like, for a time they were doing 4 nights in places when they had SmackDown and Raw bookending the weekends. Yeah,
I mean, I think it makes sense that like SummerSlam is the first event that you extend to 2 nights because of its distance from WrestleMania. They kind of feel like they're two opposite ends of a yearly calendar that you can peak and demand that sort of attention from an audience. But the Rumble is a bigger show traditionally than SummerSlam. There's a lot more anticipation for the Rumble than there is for SummerSlam, and I think audiences will ticket sales will reflect that. The fact that you also have 2 Royal Rumbles that you could split between the men and the women almost makes it perfect, for a 2-night event. And I think it's only a matter of time, depending on who's willing to pay for it.
You could basically have 8 matches between 2 nights, and those are in a WWE pacing like that. That's a 3.5-hour show right there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So anyway, this is probably just a sign of things to come, but it's
really quite impressive. Like, I mean, this stuff was kind of happening even before TKO, but especially after TKO, seeing the types of moves they're making. I mean, they really are a pretty well-oiled business.
Mark Shapiro he was ecstatic today, wasn't he?
Yeah, I'll bet.
on a much more somber note, Charles Scaggs, aka Too Cold Scorpio, Flash Funk. So this was first reported by TMZ. This just came out today regarding his arrest, which would have been in the early hours of Saturday, June 15th, and we have since been able to obtain some other accounts of what happened. But basically, Scaggs was working as a security guard at this gas station in Kansas City and is accused of stabbing a patron that had come into the gas station and was found with multiple lacerations to his head, chest, legs, and abdomen, and ended up being transported to the hospital while Scaggs was taken into Metro Patrol for a 24-hour investigation hold. And the story, and basically we got the kind of rundown from the prosecutor's office in Clay County, Missouri, with the statements from both sides. The victim, who was not named, stated that he entered the gas station to take out money from the ATM and got confronted by Scaggs on the way out regarding smoking inside of the store, and ended up pushing Scaggs away when he got too close to him, and claims that Scaggs attacked him and he was just defending himself, and then stating he was not armed. And there was a witness that came by, saw that the two men were yelling and that they were throwing punches, and then had to administer first aid to the victim because of these multiple stab wounds. And Scaggs' side, he is stating that he was just doing his rounds and observed the victim smoking inside and gave him a warning, to which he alleges the victim responded, "F you, the fuck you gonna do?" Not a good response to have at 4 a.m. That should never be your response. That would be my bit of wisdom. Scaggs asked him to leave, and he admitted he placed his hand on the victim's back on his way out, and he flipped out over this, threatened to kill Scaggs, and then threatened to knock him out. And Scaggs warned the victim to back up, and then he said he reached for his brass knuckles, but instead pulled out a knife. So, I mean, bad options all around when you're reaching in and what you're going to pull out in terms of a weapon.
How does he have all this in his...
Listen, if you're a security guard at 4 a.m, I can understand being prepared for these kinds of situations. I really can. He stated that the victim wrestled him to the ground and had him in a guillotine, and Scaggs noted that he probably stabbed him a couple of times as he was punching and using the knife at the same time to get away from the victim. And then the managers came out to break things up and get Scaggs inside to clean up, and Scaggs had multiple marks on him, scratches, redness, and he was taken into custody. And they did write down in the report that due to the violent nature of this incident, Charles Scaggs should be considered a danger to the public. And TMZ did put in their report that he's scheduled to be in court next month, and we will see where this goes. But he is facing 2 felony charges. So these are serious charges that he is facing, and he's claiming self-defense, and maybe that was the case. But this was they were describing like the 2 knife wounds to the victim's chest. One was like a 6 to 7 inch knife wound. Like he's lucky that this victim was that we know of was relatively okay, because he had many stab wounds as a result of this. So we'll continue to follow this. On some lighter news, we move on over to the G1 qualifying tournament that started over the weekend, and Yujiro is out of this year's G1. I was celebrating all weekend. I mean, this was a wonderful elimination, but also out of this year's tournament. For the first time since 2006, it will be a Toru Yano-less G1.
That one, okay, knowing who he was up against in the bracket doesn't really surprise me as much, but I mean, I did consider him a bit of a front runner, because of just the classic Yano break that he seems to afford so many people. And I think as just sort of a tonal break, providing a comedy match for at least one comedy match for everybody in this bracket, I actually, more years than not, consider him a pretty welcome addition, and necessary addition even. So none of that this year.
No. So the next round, it'll see Callum Newman versus Kenta and Yoshihashi against Tomohiro Ishii on the A block side of things. Who is your thought of those 4 to get the spot in the A block? Callum Newman, Kenta, Yoshihashi, Tomohiro Ishii. Is Ishii the favorite?
I think Ishii has to be the favorite. I have to think. I mean, I just don't see them going with Callum Newman as sort of like the youth prospect. Kenta possibly, but I think Ishii is far more fan friendly, first of all, and like he seems as much of a staple of the G1 as anybody.
And then the B block has Oleg Boltin versus his mentor Hiroshi Tanahashi, and TJP versus Taichi. I definitely see Oleg Boltin beating Tanahashi, who seems like he is just putting over everybody. I'm thinking Oleg Boltin is probably the pick here that they're going to go with and make him the big focus. Not that I feel he's going to win a lot of matches, but he gets this 10th spot. I am surprised like that Taichi will not be in the G1. Well, at least that's my assumption. But I'm leaning towards Oleg Boltin getting the other spot.
Sure, it could happen. I could see it.
All right. Wai, I have to get your thoughts on the Jeff Jarrett segment. This aired on Collision. This was the edited version, aired on Collision, of him explaining his reverence, his friendship with Owen Hart and what this tournament means to him. And then we got the 9-minute unedited version online afterward, which was, I love the fact that they didn't produce the 9 minutes. They didn't put music underneath it. They didn't add like anything. It was just him. This was like such an emotional video to put up. I believe that one day when we look back at Jeff Jarrett's career, this is going to be a pretty significant memory that people have of Jeff Jarrett. That's how strong this segment was. And it puts you in this situation. First of all, this match has to be that show that is right outside of Memphis next week. Like there's no other place to have him have this match to me than Memphis.
Yeah, which might have been, I think, part of the reason of including him in this year's tournament, besides perhaps the obvious here. I think when you mentioned like pivotal moments in Jeff Jarrett's career, unfortunately, I think a lot of us will remember his interview during the Owen tribute show. Just, you know,
it's haunting. Like when you, the fact that it was them that they had to throw to, you know, everyone is probably rocked from this, but him especially so. Like they have to go, and you can tell the last place him and Deborah want to be is on a broadcast at the moment. There's the interview on Over the Edge, and then there's this moment on the Owen Hart tribute show the next night, and both of them I remember extremely clearly.
Yeah, and to my knowledge, I don't know if we've heard Jeff Jarrett speak on camera about Owen, at least to this extent, since that. You know, like was he in the Dark Side of the Ring documentary?
Yes, I think he was. So like he's done his podcast on it, but on camera in terms of something, no. And you know, he's gone very much in depth in terms of and I mean, this is addressed in the promo, like when he went to seek counseling, like the amount of grief that he sort of just parked to the side regarding Owen Hart was kind of like this wound that was never addressed. And it made me remember of all people speaking once with Bob Hawley, and he had just put his book out, and somehow this came up in the conversation. And I just explained, like, you and the people you are around have experienced so much more death than the common person has. And how much of that are you just compartmentalizing and moving on? Like, are you addressing this? And he kind of was just left there to think about it and stating that there's always the next town, and it's just move forward, forward, forward. And it has not surprised me when you hear someone like a Jeff Jarrett explain, like, once you're off the hamster wheel and you're kind of dealing with what you have been around and what you have lost, it's not surprising to me that stuff that has been packed away for decades comes back, and that has to be addressed at a certain point. Like all of this being brought up, and like his wife dying, like I didn't even realize his wife, I knew that she had died like in May. I did not realize it was the same day as Owen when she died of breast cancer.
Oh, awful. Yeah, and a video like this, I think just kind of shows you that this is something that he is still shaken as much up about now as he was, 20, however many years ago, John, and it was incredibly gripping, TV, and I hesitate to even call it any sort of wrestling promo because it wasn't that. It was just a man kind of speaking from the heart about, somebody he considered a brother that's no longer around. So certainly, I guess the most emotional segment we've had from Jeff Jarrett in AEW so far, maybe in years. And the reaction is going to be pretty big for him against whoever wild card is.
What does this change your outlook on, like, this was a pretty clear cut, the wild card comes in, like, my thought, like, we were just throwing out names of this being like a Hangman Page. Like, yes, you can do it where it's still emotional that he comes up short against the wild card participant, but like, there is not going to be anyone in this tournament that is the sympathetic figure that Jeff Jarrett is to the audience.
So I think
it's a really tough, like, booking decision that you go for. Like, I don't think they could have imagined that you would get this out of Jeff Jarrett in a quick sit down segment, even knowing the emotional history he has too, and the link to Owen.
Yeah, sort of, like, I guess, like, I can't really even think of like anybody else entering this tournament that would receive such a big reaction in Calgary, for instance, in the finals, than Jeff Jarrett after something like this. Nonetheless, I can't see them throwing away their plans for the entire tournament because of even the reaction to this. I can see them maybe giving Jeff Jarrett a role in, the outcome, especially if Wildcard ends up making it to the finals. But I can't see them throwing away their plans for what could be a major program heading towards Wembley's main event.
Yeah, well, it was fantastic. If you had somehow missed the 9-minute version, I would certainly recommend watching it. It was something incredible just to see. Last note before we get to Raw, we don't have all the U.S. numbers out yet, but for Canada on Friday night, this was Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final, airing against SmackDown, and the hockey game did 4.7 million viewers. So multiply that number by around 9, and that's the US equivalent. So we're talking like 43 plus million people in Canada, the equivalent. And so SmackDown was not only up against the Stanley Cup, but they were also up against a Jays game that's always going to do well, and a CFL game. And the result was SmackDown falling almost in half this week to 109,000 viewers, which was their lowest audience in Canada since July of 2022, which is to say that I think tonight's Raw is going to be up against that much more competition. If this Game 6 did 4.7 million viewers, like, this game will probably top 6 million viewers in Canada. And maybe I'm being on the low end, but I would say that now they are in the clear, though. The playoffs are over, but this is going to be one of the biggest sports numbers in Canada of, like, this decade. I think this Game 7 is going to generate. And it was a close game right up until the end, which Wai unfortunately missed.
I did. You spoiled it for me, John. Spoiler alert.
Well, Wai, one of the things that you could have done was perhaps have your VPN service ready to go. And you could have been able to have the notifications on and have a reminder that the Stanley Cup Final was coming to its conclusion, right as The Miz and R-Truth were walking out to defend their world tag titles. And here, folks, returning to Post Wrestling, it's one of the biggest comebacks of 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you NordVPN.
As wrestling fans, we now have access to more events than ever before. But with rising ticket and travel costs, subscription fees, and a growing number of pay-per-views, staying up to date can get expensive, which is why we love telling our audience about NordVPN. In the US, ordering Forbidden Door will cost you $50, but directing your NordVPN to the UK or Australia immediately unlocks cheaper international prices, allowing you to purchase the event at half the price. Using NordVPN, you can also sign up for AEW Plus, which grants you an even bigger discount on AEW's pay-per-views and access to editions of Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision live or on demand, commercial-free. Nord continues to give post-wrestling listeners an exclusive offer of 4 bonus months on top of all 2-year plans when you sign up at nordvpn.com/postwrestling. That's less than $3 a month for their basic plan. And just for this period, they're sweetening the deal with global eSIM service Sane, offering up to 20 gigabytes of travel data available for use in over 150 countries. Sign up at nordvpn.com/postwrestling to get your bonus months and free Sane data voucher, 30-day money-back guarantee if you're not satisfied. Again, nordvpn.com/postwrestling. Let Nord know you found them through us.
He's my favorite pitch man. I missed him. Back here on the show. NordVPN, folks. /post wrestling.
I mean, the job is easy when the deal is that good, John. Okay, up to 20 gigs of free travel data, courtesy of Sane. You kidding me?
See, Way has to be very polite in some of these things, but I don't. So, folks, I mean, if you're not taking yourself up on this offer for Forbidden Door, you're an idiot. Like, why? Why would you just? Why don't you take out your credit card and just put some kerosene on it and turn on the flame? That's what you're doing. You're basically burning money when you could be saving it.
What are you? Somebody who has endless money to spend on air conditioning units at the Honda dealership? No, not all of us live that sort of life. Okay, some of us have to really struggle to pay for these AC fixes. All right, and for those of us, we've got nordvpn.com/postwrestling.
Yes, let's all help Way's partner have AC in the car throughout this scorching hot summer.
Okay, well,
Way would have just got one of those like portable fans with like a battery and just tried to duct tape it to his his window.
Okay, evidently a lot of you guys are I guess I don't know, you care about this because we're getting a lot of super chats here. John Taylor sends $25, Dickie Bird sends $50, Condition These Nuts, Pete in Texas sends 25, MJ sent 50 as well. So I don't intend to get money from you guys. It's okay. But thank you very much. Subscribe to the Post Wrestling Cafe if you want to support us. That's the most you could do for us. But thank you all for your support.
Yes, and the final note: if you want a sample of my audio news updates, I put one up today, free. You can just this is for all of the WH Park freeloaders out there. You can listen to today's as a sample, where you get the news of the day with my beautiful voice, my mid-afternoon voice, when I am just loaded with caffeine and energetic, not like me late at night when it's just a slog, as you can tell. But today, going through all of the news, some great sound for some wonderful context, a little snippet from our Evan Husney interview, and I introduced a Daily Show staple back in the day, the Moment of Zen.
Oh, you do a lovely job on these. As I was washing my dishes and listening, and I'm like all caught up for this show. Like you're like, the research is so easy for this show now because I'm just listening to you tell me the news. You really do a tremendous job. Obviously, like, you spend your day collecting these stories, and you're also a great presenter. This is me kind of reciprocating,
Go on,
some of the
go on. I need it.
But it's great. So where can people listen to this?
Just head on over to postwrestlingcafe.com and you can listen to it free right there. You can join the free tier, and we throw you some scraps every now and then, including today. So
don't call them scraps.
You know what I mean. We're trying to lure you in. This is a promotional tactic. We got to be.
They're not scraps though. That it sounds like it's garbage. It's like, these are like treasures that we're providing.
It's the only wrestling news update that will be bookended by Chris Cuthbert calling the Edmonton Oilers Game 6 win and Donald Trump.
Somehow you
could you ask for more?
No. Mm-hmm.
On to Raw we go. Tonight's show from their new home, Indianapolis, Indiana, at the Gainbridge Fieldhouse. You know who else's home this is? It's Pat McAfee's hometown. And this guy, for the last year, has been doing his show on Mondays and then flying to all points of the United States to make Raw. And then tonight, they're in Indianapolis. He's nowhere to be seen. He did a show today. He had Paul Levesque on the show. He had Michael Cole on the show, and he was absent. And I guess, I don't know, couldn't make it to Raw.
Okay,
and he is doing this ongoing Wyatt storyline on his show, which I could not imagine being a viewer of the Pat McAfee show that doesn't follow any of his WWE stuff and not wanting to just turn this off as he's pushing the Wyatt angle on his show with audio glitches and the video going out, and Pat having to, that's just one of the guys in the back that's playing with us.
Mm-hmm. Who knows what the real reason is? I mean, I have to imagine the Wyatt stuff was done to facilitate whatever real reason he had to take off a show in his own home, city. So
I would think of all shows, you would want him on this one to be like the face that makes a big presentation about this huge announcement during the day.
Well, they did have him pre-taped, be that guy. So well, is he okay then? Did he do a show today?
He did do the show today, yeah. That I know of. I'm not sitting down and watching 3 hours of Pat McAfee.
So he had the Chad Gable recovery within him.
Yeah, but I mean, this guy really was unbooked and didn't get put back into a triple threat.
Right.
So no Pat McAfee on the show. That meant we got Michael Cole and The Miz for the first hour of the show. So they recap the Wyatt 6 attack. But before they can get into it, Drew McIntyre just walks across the screen and into the ring where he is bombarded by CM Punk chants and states, "I am done with all of you. You're dead to me." He hopes that Punk is at home in pain and uncomfortable because I did that to you. And he pulls out the friendship bracelet with Larry and AJ's name on it. Says that this bracelet is worth 50 cents that a fan made for him, but it's priceless. And then goes very low to insult your stupid looking dog, Larry, which prompted a Larry chant from the Indianapolis crowd. And he declares he is going to win the Money in the Bank ladder match, but he is not alone anymore because he has CM Punk's dog and wife in his corner as he puts on the bracelet, and Punk is going to have to watch him win Money in the Bank and then cash in that very same night in Toronto.
Yeah, really calling a shot there. A really good classic heel promo here from Drew for what is really like a pretty classic storyline of a heel threatening a family member or at least like a symbol of that family member through, I guess an heirloom, I guess you could call this bracelet. I think this feud was already hard enough without an angle like this, but a move like this feels like it's the perfect way to escalate it to something even more personal. After what Punk did to Drew in Glasgow, which is something that Drew perceives as a very personal offense that Punk committed to him. I think this is the perfect sort of back and forth move for Drew McIntyre to do to CM Punk. They've done a great job of elevating this at this point to another level. And I think because of Punk's like very sporadic appearances, the pacing of this one feels a lot similar to like an angle from like the 80s or 90s where, stars weren't necessarily interacting with each other every single week. They're teaming up together and we're trying to see if like they can get along. You're not getting any of that. You're getting these sporadic appearances, but they're talking about each other every single week. And occasionally you get a big moment like you got on Friday last week. So I really think they've done a masterful job of maintaining and even furthering this story through Punk's injury.
Are they going to put this bracelet on a pole? I know Punk is against stipulation matches for the first match back, but
yeah, bracelet on a pole.
Like Punk has to reclaim this bracelet, doesn't he, at some point?
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna do pole matches though. Maybe okay. Maybe a bracelet in the briefcase, bracelet in the bank.
Okay, yeah, that's maybe he's gonna put this in a hidden safety deposit box that Phil has to get the keys to.
You think they're gonna sell these? AJ
I thought of the idea of them working a story where Drew starts marketing these and he gets the royalties to them. But he doesn't disclose it at first, so fans think they're supporting Punk.
Oh, goodness. Wow. That fan, whoever made this, I think should be the one getting all those proceeds if they do that.
Chad Gable arrives, and security is flanking him as he shields himself from the camera to hide the wound that he sustained. So Paul Levesque, it did take him a whole week, but he did go on Pat McAfee's show today and confirmed Chad Gable was alive.
He did that today. Wouldn't you have I guess assumed that when Adam Pearce cleared him to wrestle?
Well, maybe Adam Pearce was left in the dark. Maybe he didn't know. He was just going with the impression that he's alive. But we got confirmation from Paul Levesque again on ESPN today, which to the fan tuning in to hear about tonight's hockey game, and they're getting an update on a man's life.
How about updates on like the 15 other people that were in the room that were lying lifeless?
I'm going with the impression they were all massacred last week.
So 14 casualties, but Chad Gable's okay. All right.
There seemed to be a lot of like you brought it up, and a lot of people were discussing if Braun Strowman was among the slaughtered last week, but that doesn't seem to be that he was.
It was not him. It was somebody who was also like heavy, like muscular.
Okay. Well, it wasn't like it was plenty of people that thought like was that Braun, and obviously not. They're just going like this was a single focus on Chad Gable and a bunch of innocent bystanders. One of whom, again, his head was like just his brain exploded and had a big blood stain onto the wall. I think that guy's 100% dead. There's no way. He's not doing any triple threats. Yeah. Kathy Kelly gets an update out of Gable's room and says that others are shocked that Chad Gable is here, despite the wound on his head, and he's going to determine what happened to Chad Gable and the other victims. We never got an update from Kathy Kelly about the other victims.
Not real people, I guess.
Jackie Redmond is with a fired-up Ludwig Kaiser, and she states, "You're still visibly upset over the events of last week," and brings up Sheamus's name, and Kaiser shoots down Sheamus. And to show how fired up and visibly upset he was, he says, "Braun Strowman, Braun Breaker," and then launches into his promo. So even him trying to keep his opponents straight here. This is maybe Vince was onto something, not having guys by the same name. I mean, here, this guy tripped up on live TV. And he cuts a big promo that he is strong and explosive. That is Braun Breaker. But he says, "I am destined for greatness, and I will prove that Braun Breaker is no Ludwig Kaiser." And that brought us to an interesting match between these two, where for tonight, Braun Breaker was presented and worked as the babyface in this match, and it did not take a whole lot of forcing the audience to change their attitude towards Braun Breaker, because they took to him as the babyface here, and they didn't have to work that hard to sway them.
I think they've been taking to him as a babyface. I mean, yes, like so much of modern wrestling is about like who you're paired against, and there are a lot of characters that kind of can play in that shade of gray these days. But Breaker, in my opinion, has always been presented up until this point as a babyface. He's just cool. He's the guy who does cool moves. He's the guy like they consistently play highlight reels of to show you those cool moves.
Tell that to Samantha Irvin at ringside.
I mean, I really feel bad.
Man, he's so cool.
For her, but he is like really cool, you know? Like, I mean, anyway, so tonight, like he can really kind of switch between, but I really would say if I had to pick a side, I already consider him a babyface.
Should that not have been your, if you know, okay, Ricochet, he's not coming back. Should he not have been like laid out backstage last week, you know, blood coming out of his head, and that's the end of Ricochet?
Well, then you don't give heat to Braun Breaker that way, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, it was one way. It could have made it really just cement his status, and then he can come back from the dead in a couple of years' time when his contract.
But I'll say Ricochet, Chad Gable looked a lot worse than Ricochet, and Gable was back the very next week.
Well, we got no updates from Jackie Redmond or Kathy Kelly on Ricochet, so we're kind of led to believe like he's not coming back from this ever. So Breaker and Kaiser, we had, again, Braun working the full babyface match, did the scale up to the top, no hands Frankensteiner, crowd was into that, and then
looked good this week.
Yes, he didn't fall on his head. Breaker sprints around the ring, and he misses, running into the steps, so then Kaiser goes for his sprint around the ring, and out of nowhere comes Sheamus over the guardrail and nails him with a knee strike, and we get the DQ at 10 minutes and 9 seconds, and Sheamus goes to clear the desk, has to hoist up Kaiser on 2 attempts for a powerbomb, and as he lifts up Kaiser, he is speared by Braun Breaker, who, this guy knows how to position himself. Instead of getting dragged into some triple threat nonsense, he just leapfrogged these guys and went right to the title match in a couple of segments' time, and he's not even going to have to deal with these two. Let Sheamus and Kaiser beat the piss out of each other. I'm just going to go right to the title match.
Well, clearly that's how in modern wrestling you earn your title shots these days, right? You just either ask the boss or just like piss off your opponent well enough, and Braun Breaker pissed off the champion well enough to get that match. Yeah, this was, I think, a pretty fun match in my opinion, and it was a match where the DQ finish didn't really upset this audience at all, and I think so much of that is because they have managed to successfully create a Goldberg aura around Braun Breaker, and it's the performer too. You know, he's a performer who's capable of delivering that sort of intensity and spectacle and power and speed through his offense. So I guess it's a bit of a football thing, but you know, these matches are just fun to watch because everything Braun does looks special. It was unique to see him play a straight up babyface here. And the finish I thought was well designed, calling back to each other's interferences from prior weeks. I would consider this like a pretty hot build for this mid card, rising both Kaiser and Braun's profiles.
Then Judgment Day is in their clubhouse. Dominic is eating something, and the others are all playing 2K24.
Look like chicken nuggets.
That's what I thought, but I thought, are they really? I mean, yeah, that's a pretty.
I think that the joke is like Dominic is the type of guy who likes chicken nuggets, and Liv knew that. That's why she bought his favorite food, which is chicken nuggets, because he's a child.
Well, she also bought him 2K24, which these are not just laying around backstage.
Well, I mean,
they explained she gifted this to them, so maybe she just swiped this from the merch stand. But they were all around. How would you grade this in terms of product integration for the video game for a storyline?
Okay, not bad. I mean, like, it works, don't you think? Like, I don't think it wasn't like a Snickers bar where they're just like, you know.
I was just amazed that we were looking at, like, at worst here we have like probably 2 millionaires in this room, and it's like they are fixated on like this video game that they were gifted, that they're gonna have to share, the 4 of them here in this clubhouse, and have apparently never played this game for the 6 months it's been out. They certainly sold me on like their enthusiasm.
It's a lot of work to bring the PlayStation, what is it, 5 now, you know, back and forth through the cities. I don't know, John. Like, where's your PlayStation? Where's your?
I don't have a PlayStation. Never had a PlayStation.
Well, what do you have now? What do your kids play? Genesis?
They play Switch.
Switch. Gotcha.
Yeah. Which we then had to switch focus because Damian Priest comes in, and Dominic is asked about all these distractions from Liv, and then he gets a text message. And he shows the other guys the phone. But we don't get to see what this is. We just see their reactions, which was maybe Carlito's highlight of his entire WWE return run, was this facial reaction to whatever was on his phone. And Priest asks, how did Liv get your number? Which I thought was like a nice little detail that was thrown in there. And Dom explains, I don't know. And Priest then explains how Bron is having fun with all you guys. He should have been handled by now, but by all means, guys, enjoy your video games. This sounded like The Undertaker on a podcast. And Balor says, you know what, he's right. We got to take care of Braun once and for all. And we were out for death for Braun Strowman. What the Wyatt Six could not accomplish last week, they were going to try and do tonight to Braun.
Priest's character is like kind of essentially biker taker, don't you think? You know?
In some ways. Yeah.
Like he's supposed to be locker room leader, and certainly judging people, you know, in and out of court.
Is he running Wrestler's Court?
Maybe. Well, why do they call him Judgment Day?
I guess so. Guys. Yes, yeah, maybe, like, you know, encouraging guys to, like, you know, bring firearms to the locker room and you know, be men.
Yeah, I think the whole story is being very well conveyed. I think they're continuing to dangle these threads really well, and you know, presenting Finn Balor as a very, I guess, easy to pinpoint suspect, but like one that still keeps me intrigued about what the actual reveal is going to be.
Breaker is pounding on Adam Pearce's door. He's sick of people getting into his business. He says he wants a title match with Sami Zayn. And boom, there appears Sami Zayn, who is willing to face him anytime, any place. So Braun challenges him to Money in the Bank. Zayn agrees, and Pearce makes it official on his birthday, they add. So happy birthday to Adam Pearce. And this was our lone appearance from Sami Zayn on the show, but another match added to Toronto.
Yeah, I think the match that we might have expected coming out of the heavy tease last week. So sorry, Sheamus, I know you tried to qualify for an IC title shot, but Braun Breaker pissed him off more, so he's getting the shot. Do you see a title change in Toronto?
I think it's at least a possibility. Yeah, I think this is a compelling match for that side of things, of the idea of, you know, just the fact they even beat Braun by DQ tonight. I thought was, you know, this is someone they've been exceptionally careful with, that I could see this leading to a title change potentially, or they extend this as well to SummerSlam with maybe some other people involved. But yeah, to answer your question, I could see a title change here.
Yeah, like I said last week, I think Braun is like a perfect candidate for this level of championship, somebody who I could see holding that title for a long time. But the question is, like, are they done with the Sami run? Do they have more to accomplish with it? How will Toronto react to Braun Breaker beating Sami for the title? Braun will definitely be a heel on that night.
What heel gets to run down the Toronto Maple Leafs that weekend? Drew?
Yeah, sure. I think it might be CM Punk, actually, if he comes into town.
Okay, possible.
He's got quite the promo against the Leafs in him, I'm sure.
Drew, Lyra, Valkryia, Kairi, Sane, and Shayna Baszler was our women's qualifier for the night. And Lyra hits a drop kick through the ropes. Okay, let me repeat that. She hit a drop kick through the ropes to Kairi on the floor. Miz responded, "I haven't seen anything like that in my 20 years in WWE." I was like, I had to have missed something. Rewound.
Did he say that about that? I thought he said that about like the DDT on the apron.
No, this was
it coming off a commercial break or before the commercial?
I don't think it was coming off the commercial break.
Well, how much wrestling has The Miz seen?
Like, I don't know. This was a pretty bare bones spot that I have seen like many times on Raw every week, much less any other wrestling. But anyway.
Well, he's never seen Lyra Valkryia do it, okay?
Okay. Sane hits a running blockbuster to Shayna, but in executing this, lands on Lyra's leg, which didn't look like a fun landing, or for Lyra, the one receiving this. There's an insane elbow, but Baszler gets her boot up, and then the Kirifuda gets stopped. Gut wrench, sit-out powerbomb by Lyra onto Sane, but Baszler makes the save. All three women are down, and the Kirifuda is applied to Lyra when Sane comes off the top with the insane elbow, but Baszler has let go and gets hit with the elbow, and then with Sane staggering, she is hit with the Nightwing, and Lyra gets the pin at 8:26, joining Io Sky and Chelsea Green in the ladder match.
I actually really enjoyed this match. You know, it kind of made me wish I could have seen some of what was going on in the commercial. I think these mid-card women's division matches often don't get very good reactions because none of the characters really get enough time or promo time on TV to like get over. But this match, I think, had pretty strong reactions, at least, you know, when it was on air, because I think the action was really good. You know, cool looking, special looking moves, good speed, and well design countering sequences. I mean, got the Miz stamp of approval.
Miz saw a generation defining moment in this match. So how could you disagree? Drew catches up with Adam Pearce and argues that he should automatically be entered into the ladder match. Pearce says you don't deserve it. And he makes quite the point that you allowed CM Punk to use a referee shirt to get involved in my match. And Seth Rollins is getting a title match after I beat him at WrestleMania. And
good logic.
I mean, Pearce had no comeback for this either. And he tells Pearce to do the right thing and threatens him. And the threat was answered with Drew having a match with Sheamus and Ilya Dragunov next week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which I'm not going to complain about, but Drew did not get his way here. And then the shot turns to Liv Morgan, who walks past them, and the camera follows her out to the arena. As we go to the break, they come back, they promote the Indiana deal with WWE, a first of its kind deal, starting with the Rumble next February. And then they show Tyrese Halliburton in the front row, who's got Logan Paul on FaceTime.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Famous people are friends with famous people, I guess.
Liv is here to get Dominic's attention and mentions the gifts and the text that she sent Dominic, and points out that Rhea never got Dominic any gifts and refers to him as Daddy Dom and promises to give him another gift if he comes out now. Instead, Zelina Vega walks out, and she is here to shut up Liv Morgan. Says that Dom is Rhea's sloppy seconds, and you are out here chasing Dirty D, while I'm out here chasing the women's title. And Liv calls this the most important thing in my life. She remembered she was women's champion, and Zelina says, you schemed for your opportunities. I starved for them, and I'm issuing a challenge for the title tonight. But Liv brushes it off, stating, we can do it next week. Dom comes out and is hit with sloppy seconds chants, and he denies being Liv Morgan's man and wants to help Zelina get her title match because he wants to see anyone but Liv hold the women's title. Vega does not want his help, as Liv then attacks Vega as Rey Mysterio comes out of nowhere to pull Liv off, and Dominic shoves his father to the ground, which prompts Liv to smile and follow Dominic to the back. And lost in all of this was Rey Mysterio wearing a Missionaries of Death shirt for the recent passing of El Signo, who just died, but Los Missionarios de la Muerte. This was a great shirt that he was wearing. He saved it for this big angle.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Man, this segment like felt straight out of like 1999. I don't know if it felt that way to you. But like a bit more of a sterilized version of it, you know, like instead of calling each other maybe even more demeaning names, like the teasing here is of Dom being Rhea's sloppy
Yeah,
seconds.
1999, this would have been two guys, and the woman would have been in the Dominic role, getting just berated and pelted, and
the crowd would have echoed and chanted along. But this time they were chanting sloppy seconds at Dominic, but still, like, I mean, there was still it was still kind of being directed towards Liv as well. And then we also had like a cat fight type of brawl here between these two, like requiring a man to pull them apart. So I don't know if like that was deliberate inspiration. I almost think it had to have been. Now I didn't think there was anything like nearly as offensive as like your typical Attitude Era's like women segment, but I definitely can see like
if that's the bar. Yes, it was cleared here.
Well, all I'm saying is I definitely can see at least some argument to say that this is diminishing the seriousness of the women's competition, or at least like how I think in recent years, like we've been able to treat those as seriously as the men's competitions, and sometimes even more serious. But I also think, like, again, like my feelings throughout this entire program is that we've been long enough, and I've been curious to see how this current regime in 2024 will handle this type of storyline. I don't think they've gotten so far from, I think, the point of like tastelessness that I see like that much reason to like, I don't know, dislike it, but you can definitely make the argument that they've taken a bit too much attention away from like the in-ring aspect of it all, and we'll see if they can reclaim that next week.
One of the things I find to be a bit of a differentiator in this is that unlike a lot of the portrayals of women in WWE's past and in a lot of wrestling's past, is that like Liv Morgan is not just being simply objectified as this, like, you know, damsel in distress. Like, she is the one controlling this. She is the one running the show. If anything, it is Dominic that is just the clueless member here. In like, Liv Morgan is in control of all, like, her character is in control, and you, the viewer, know that she is pulling all of these strings. Like, she is like the powerful figure in this whole dynamic, and I think that is, I think, giving people some kind of difference between other ways that the women were portrayed, where they were simply there as eye candy and providing that eye candy to your audience.
You've had like seductress roles in the past too, where you could maybe make a similar argument. But I think it's fine to have like a variety of characters, and I think like seducer is like one of those characters that you can have in your storytelling. But I just think it in like, especially coming from where we came from and where we've come out of with, you know, quote unquote, this women's wrestling revolution, they've definitely shied away from this sort of thing for quite a while. And let me just kind of couch all of this by saying, you and I are not women, and we are unable to give give a proper sort of opinion about this and how it relates to women who might be experiencing this. So please chime in if you are a female listener of ours, and if you have a comment about how you think about this storyline.
Pierce has an update with Kathy Kelly regarding Chad Gable. He's medically cleared for the triple threat match, but regarding his mental state, that's his story to tell, and he's not sure if he's ready to share that yet. He's breathing, was the update I took from this. Seth Rollins, there was a video package on him focusing on WrestleMania 40, the recovery from his knee injury, mixed in with some always reliable childhood home videos that you can mix it in. The rule of thumb is that if you put a childhood video into a package, it's automatically amazing. Like, that's how people will react to it. It's like, this is incredible. This person was like, they liked wrestling when they weren't being paid to do it. And it's just like your Pavlov's dog. And we got various highlights of his career going back to FCW, and then setting up his match with Damian Priest last week. This is your life, Seth Rollins, in about 2 minutes.
It was a really good video, and I think like a subtle detail about it that I wonder how much time it took for the editor to create was them putting the Seth Rollins chant inside whatever song that they were using, and it blended in perfectly.
Yeah, it was like a commercial song that they used. I forget the artist name.
It was a commercial song, and they had the oh, and I have never heard this original song, but like I have to think that they managed to somehow edit in these Seth Rollins chants on top of it, which probably took quite a bit of time.
You don't think any mainstream artists are sampling his chanting into their music?
You know, the YouTuber comment section and everywhere else.
We might get an update.
They're quick to correct me, so please let us know if I'm mistaken.
SmackDown on Friday. It's at Madison Square Garden. There's over 15,000 tickets out. It's going to be a very big SmackDown, and they have announced a Bloodline acknowledgement ceremony for Friday. Dominic is trying to get away from Liv Morgan backstage, and she thanks him for being her hero and saving her from his deadbeat dad. And she gives Dominic a hug, and he is just trying to get away. R-Truth walks in and says how he has a soft spot for Tom and Nick Mysterio, and knows that that Dominic is playing hard to get. And basically, Liv is able to talk R-Truth into getting a match for later tonight, approved by Adam Pearce, where Liv can deliver a tag title shot for JD McDonough and Finn Balor, and Truth goes along with this and agrees. And then she walks away. Miz is shown on commentary reacting to this and storms off. He is not happy that he has to defend the tag titles tonight. And that was the end of Miz on commentary. So Cole called the rest of the show by himself.
I think he did a pretty good job.
He did. He did a very good job on his own.
Yeah. Like really, like it sounded suddenly more serious, and I think that just kind of comes with not having a color commentator that typically plays more of like a heelish character. But Cole did a really good job playing solo.
He also got in a line during the main event that Miz has contributed more in this match than he did for an hour on commentary with me.
Yeah.
Braun Strowman, Bronson Reed, and Chad Gable in our next Money in the Bank qualifier. Gable explains on the mic that rumors of his demise were greatly exaggerated. He was left for dead, but Chad Gable cannot be killed. It's like Matt Hardy will not die. Chad Gable lives, and he is coming out to face 2 more monsters, and he will win Money in the Bank and become Master in the Bank. If there's one thing I really want to end, is this all like inserting your own variation of Money in the Bank to become, hey, I have a nickname that starts with an M.
What would yours be?
Oh my God. I would be, I don't know. I couldn't win Money in the Bank because I wouldn't have something catchy, I don't think.
Main man.
Moving on. So he's
Maple Leafs lover in the bank.
That's it. I mean, just print the t-shirts now and you might as well print the money with it. He's looking all scared and concerned about the return of the Wyatts. They dispose of Gable early, so the monsters go at it. Reed military presses Gable onto Braun on the floor and follows with a suicide dive. This is Bronson Reed delivering this. Come back from break. Braun uses Gable and beels him into Reed and then does the freight train spot. Gable uses a German onto Reed. It gets knocked off balance. So he's just sitting on the turnbuckle for the next couple of minutes, and Braun power slams Reed on the floor when the Judgment Day attack Braun, and they're beating him down 4-on-1. Balor chop blocks him, and they render Braun useless on the floor. So Reed has somehow just been rolled into the ring, and he's just laid there perfectly in position for Gable to climb back up to the top and hit the moonsault, and it's Chad Gable pinning Bronson Reed to qualify and joining Carmelo Hayes, Andrade, and Jey Uso. So we're at least shaping up for a pretty entertaining ladder match with the 4 of the 6 members.
The whole like Gable was removed and then put back into the match was really strange, and I think
very strange
calls to attention.
And they didn't even bring it up the fact that Ilya was the replacement. They acknowledged that he had been clear. He was at one point questionable, but then was put back into the match. But
that sort of pivot, completely happening off screen, is not very typical of WWE these days. And it calls to I guess, suggest some form of reverting of decisions that was made behind the scenes. So then you have to ask, why was it so important for Chad Gable to be in this match? Well, the answer is clear. He had to win. But I continue to ask, why was it so important for Chad Gable to be part of the attack last week? And yes, I know that they're going to tell a bigger story with Alpha Academy. But I think that attack was so severe and he appeared to be so dead that it just having one kind of diminishes the other. You know, having Gable come back with just a Band-Aid on his head really does diminish the severity of the Wyatt 6 attack, in my opinion. If they're going to do whatever Alpha Academy story they could tell, there are other ways to draw sympathy or to even get to that point with Chad Gable. So I don't exactly know if this was entirely the plan from the get-go. I certainly do question like why Chad Gable had to be part of it.
What if it turns out that we learn that this Olympian who has had this arduous schedule for his entire WWE run, he's made out of adamantium, and it turns out that something was placed onto his heart that takes away his recuperative skills. And last week he was finally diminished, and he's got this thing that is clinging to his heart that he's going to have to rip open and tear out of himself on the operating table.
Oh, goodness. Well, he is a short man, just as I think the person you're trying to reference, Wolverine, was in the comics. But is that the storyline to the Wolverine that you just described?
No, not at all. I was talking literally about Chad Gable.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting.
The Wolverine review is coming up on Thursday.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So the lights go out, and Gable is inside, and we get a smoke filling the ring. The Wyatt piano music begins, and Nikki Cross crawls into the ring as Gable exits, and Nikki has a box and goes to deliver this box to Pat McAfee, to Michael Cole. And we mentioned, as Cole is receiving this box, not even like referenced or mentioned afterward, there are 2 security guards that are dead on either side of the announcer's desk.
There are?
That with Cole.
Really?
If you look closely, there's 2 guards.
What are you talking about?
If you
These 2?
No, back when Nikki goes to hand the box over and the lights are still down, there's 2 security guards keeled over on either side of Michael Cole, and they are just we just are assumed that the body count has continued. It's hard to see from this. They were absolutely there.
I believe you, John, but I think we've also established in the WWE universe, security guards aren't real people.
Oh, I got it. I got it.
Yeah. They might go on to become real people, as
yes.
Triple H alludes to. You know, some of the best wrestlers start as security guards.
MJF, I mean, you got to start somewhere.
But for now, they do not get acknowledged. No.
So after the break, Michael Cole opens it, and he literally explains to us what a VHS is. We haven't seen one of these in 25 years? And it reads, "Play me" on the VHS. So Cole cannot play this immediately. He is sending his crack staff to go locate a VHS player, which is not ridiculous. I don't know where I would find a VHS player off the top of my, I don't have a VHS player. I don't think. Do I?
Yes, you do.
I might have one in here somewhere, actually. So
you definitely have
I don't think I'm representative of the greater whole out there. I don't know how many people would have VHS players at their disposal.
I'm sure Michael Cole was a tape trader who probably carries his VHS around so he can watch his All Japan tapes from the 90s and every town he goes to.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe this was one of those like Flair Steamboat matches from 77 in Mid-Atlantic that they never recorded, but for this one.
Play me. Yes. Yeah.
So we would find out later. Hopefully they can track down a VHS player. And Gable, after the break, finds Otis and wants to speak to Alpha Academy. He says how last week my life flashed before my eyes, and all I could see was the 3 of you, my family. And it's been a rough few months, and I admit I stepped over the line, and he apologizes to the 3. And families fight, but they stick together. And Otis then explains, anyone that hurts them, referring to Tozawa and Maxine, isn't my family. I meant what I said last week. We're done. And Tozawa and Otis go back into the room. Maxine is left there and explains, you really hurt Otis. He looked up to you like a brother. And I'm glad you're okay, Chad. I'll try and speak to Otis. And she leaves. I thought Maxine was fantastic here. This was Otis was great too. Everyone was great. Even, Tozawa did nothing here, but I mean, less is more for him in these roles. And then Chad is left alone, and who should pop up but the Creeds and Ivy Nile. And they ask, are you okay, Chad? It's like, no, I'm not okay. And that was it. There was no follow-up to this.
No, he's not okay. Clearly, he's fine. The man survived, a brutal, a massacre. With just a Band-Aid on his head. The man is the Wolverine. He's got incredibly recuperative powers. So I think he's okay. Again, I don't know why he needed to be in the attack last week. You could have done everything here, but with some other like way to draw sympathy from Alpha Academy. Anyway, whatever. Beyond that, like we're seemingly moving on with Chad Gable, like outside of even the Wyatt stuff. So whatever.
I think the Wyatt stuff is going to follow him. Like this is like this group has like they have singled him out, and I think this will continue for Gable. Like he's been under their, you know.
I think they will do that based off of the criticism of people asking why Chad Gable was in the attack. I think that's the only reason. This Wyatt thing is more so geared towards Jey Uso. And no Jey Uso on the show tonight. But I think we'll maybe see that later on. But we'll see how it plays out. You could be right, John. So we got our first interaction here with, or at least first confirmed on-screen interaction with Chad Gable and the Creeds. I'm surprised to see Ivy Nile here because I thought it would just be the Creeds joining Gable, but it seems like we're going to get Ivy Nile possibly joining him as well. And that would, of course, put her in direct opposition with Maxine, which is, you know, her friend and almost perfectly set up.
Yes, this will be the slow transition, or maybe not so slow. Isla Dawn and Alba Fyre against Katana, Chance, and Kayden Carter, non-title match. Carter presses Chance overhead onto both on the floor. We go through the break. Carter's working on Fyre's leg, and then the keg stand is hit on Dawn. Fyre makes the save. They prevent the after party when Dawn lands a head kick onto Chance, and then the Dawn and Fyre hit their finisher, which is like a gory bomb into a flatliner, and they pin Chance in 5 minutes and 52 seconds. Basically a match to inform you, our champions have a finisher.
Well, that's a start, right? Here are their names, first of all. Okay, here's where they're from, and they have a tag team
baby
finisher.
Steps away. We're getting there. Okay.
Yeah. Well, aren't you so like? Have they had this finisher for a while? Because like they didn't use it in the match, did they? To win.
Wait, how many matches have we seen of these two on Raw since they were called up?
We saw them win the titles.
Well, they didn't win it with this at the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
So,
but it's a really cool finisher. It's like the coolest
doesn't have a name
part
yet, I think, but that's way down the line.
Yeah. Cold crowd still, you know, despite them being champions, that alone is not enough. These two are still very cold as characters, and I think in every opportunity they should be giving them promo time, either before this match or after this match. They really do have to continue to do quite a lot of heavy lifting to just explain who these two are, or at least make people care, because I don't think they've made that big of a difference yet.
Damian Priest enters the judgment.
Did you mention the damage control?
Oh, damage control ran out and they beat up Isla Dawn and Alba Fyre, ending with the over the moonsault by Io. So they have challengers now. They have a finisher, they have the belts, and they have challengers.
Yeah. So if you remember last time we saw damage control, it was Io complaining, we need to change. She probably meant that literally because she went to go change into a black leather outfit, which seems to be, I guess, some signal that this is a new damage control. Io at least got the memo. I think Dakota at least.
She got the memo. She got a black knee brace.
A black knee brace shirt and black leather skirt. And Kairi put last minute found a leather jacket and put on a leather jacket. Now, I was wondering if like this sort of new level of damage control would be in any way inspired by the Black Lotus Triad, that I think, you know, Kairi and Io are still very well remembered for from their Lucha Underground time. And it appears to be at least some of the visual inspiration for what is supposed to be, in my opinion, probably like an evolution of damage control. But this attack was nowhere near like significant enough. Like, John, in your recap, it didn't feel any different from like, you know, a typical attack, right?
I moved on. I missed the attack segment. You had to remind me.
This needed to be way more violent if this was supposed to be a new damage control.
Well, give them some time. They're in a rebuilding phase at the moment.
Yeah.
Priest enters the Judgment Day's room, and there is Liv leaving the room, and she gets caught by Priest, and he walks in. And there is Finn Balor by himself. I thought this was like a cool moment. And Finn Balor had, this was like that music video by Shaggy. It Wasn't Me.
Yes. He's got a great "It Wasn't Me" face. Yeah.
There were some great facial reactions by the Judgment Day members tonight between Finn and Carlito. And Finn is quickly as he's playing his video game, explains that Liv was just in here to inform him that they're getting tag title shots tonight. And Priest says it looked sketchy. And he makes he explains the match, and Priest seems to be understanding here. And Balor says how Liv seems too good to be true. And Priest says, yeah, I'd agree with that, and wishes him luck in the tag title match. A good little backstage piece here. I enjoy this stuff that they're doing week to week with Finn Balor as kind of like what role he is playing here, and you're getting like some advancement of that weekly.
It's the most interesting role Balor has had in years. Like, despite being a member of the Judgment Day, like, I don't think he's crafted as much of a unique role for himself as like Rhea and Dom and Priest have. I would even say JD is like a bit more sort of like identifiable as like a unique character than Finn Balor has been. But this is kind of perfect for Finn, you know. And they're doing a great job of like giving you reasonable doubt. Like, they're giving him like pretty good alibis out of all these things. So by the end of this, it might actually not be him.
Then we got breaking news, folks. Wait, do you remember when the WrestleMania documentary was supposed to come out?
The week right after WrestleMania.
The Wednesday after WrestleMania. 84 days ago. But ladies and gentlemen, breaking news. Forget April 10th. July 3rd is when you're getting WrestleMania. Next week, next Wednesday on YouTube. WrestleMania XL, Behind the Curtain. Turns out it was a very secure curtain, but you are finally getting behind the curtain for WrestleMania. So this will premiere next week. And I've got to say, by this point, like, I don't know.
You don't care, like, really?
I'm not that interested in this. Like, I don't know. Okay. The line in this about Roman Reigns, where the one clip from Roman Reigns is like, if you can keep swerving them, then what was the line? If you can keep swerving them, then you've done your job. I was like, this guy badly needs to just watch some of this Vice series. And like, he's watching and he's hearing Kevin Nash and be like, this guy's brilliant. I mean,
I think he would have loved the finger poke of doom.
Oh, he was great. I mean, man, Kevin Nash, he is doing a lot of like, man, he really does not want this finger poke of doom to be like his booking legacy. But man,
he wants all of us to think it wasn't as bad as I think we're making it out to be.
By the
way, I'm not somebody who hates it as much as I think the rest of the world.
Well, He also believes now David Arquette. He's like, he was talking about David Arquette, and he's like, that was way worse than the finger poke of doom. Like, unprompted, like this is just his go-to. It's like this tick he has now, where it's like any bad idea, it's like finger poke of doom wasn't as bad as this.
Yeah, it was only the third worst thing to ever happen to that company.
The finger poke of doom has the honor of torpedoing your attendance, your ratings. And then there was all this other stuff. There's plenty of garnish, but I mean, that was the giant turd. Anyway,
back to this documentary though. I think
it comes out next week.
So I don't know if like this trailer is any different from the one that they showed last time, but like I love the trailer then. I still love the trailer. Like I love this version of the trailer. Like this got me hyped. So I
How long is this thing going to be? Well, if it's like 12 minutes, I'll just think.
Wait a second. So it is airing Wednesday at 7 p.m. Okay. So yes,
oh, that's right.
That's an hour before AEW Dynamite. My guess is it's going to be an hour long, but if it's 2 hours long, I think that would be a great move. Maybe that's why they had to delay it. You know, we want to make it 2 hours so that we could get the jump on Dynamite.
That's interesting. They could have, like, coming off that awful number last week to have put something like this on this week. Not to say this would have been a disaster, but it was like to put this on Wednesday at 8. It would be like you. Yeah. I don't know if
people aren't picking a YouTube documentary over Dynamite. At least I don't think they are.
Well, I think that this one, I don't think this would have had anywhere near the interest from people if it hadn't been put off for so long. It's like if this had just aired when it did, people would have watched it and it would have been disposable within 48 hours. But you've had to wait months for this thing that I think people are at least going to tune in now, even if they weren't going to watch the first iteration of this.
Or it could have the opposite effect and people just don't care about it at all.
Well, I mean, it's been talked about so much that, I mean, we will see. There will be some interest in it. It's more so just that this thing took so long to finally come out. Damian Priest also took quite a while to come out. Oh, first we had The Miz with R-Truth, basically setting up this match for later tonight, and Truth explaining that Liv and Dom is a classic rom-com. Miz says, I don't care about either of them, and Truth tells him, I love you, Miz, but only as a friend.
Well, he said, I don't care about either of them. I care about us. And that's when Truth responded.
Okay. Damian comes out and says how Rollins' video was inspiring, and we do have some commonalities, but I don't want to be like Rollins. I don't want to see my successor, who is bigger, stronger, and better. And as long as I'm champion, Seth never will get to the top of the mountain again. So Seth comes out.
So I find like the Damian Priest character like pretty interesting right now, because they're having to play this very like pretty delicate balancing act between him being the leader of a heel faction, yet like being a very clear sort of like, you know, well-meaning human being who we're supposed to eventually, you know, see as a full-on babyface. So they're having him come out and like, he's opposing Seth Rollins, who's one of your biggest baby faces on the brand, and he can't necessarily like talk shit about Seth Rollins the way a heel would. So he's coming out and doing things like, I get it. I get what you're saying. I understand your opinion, which is, I think, a great way.
I don't like the catering to the baby. It feels so much like Diesel when he won the title, and all of a sudden he's like, you can't offend any babyface. I think if anything, it's everything like we've learned from the Swerve character. Like I think that a lot of people will respond better to babyfaces that have some edge to them, that are that are not so I've got to be so in the middle here, which is what I found this to be, especially.
So that's another question, because like, is the audience buying into this? Is like they're asking a lot of the audience, again, to see this guy as the leader of a heel faction while at the same time liking him enough so that we're getting ready for a full-on babyface turn. And in this segment, when Seth Rollins came out, they were booing Damian Priest pretty loudly.
Yeah,
so
I think this guy is, he's fine in this role. I don't think he's risen to be this unbelievable champion in this role. I also don't think he's like crumbling under the role where it feels like he's being overpushed. But for the reasons you outlined, that he's all these different things, I just think like this audience, it's like they just sway in the wind with their opinions of this guy, in terms of like, it's not so much the character that defines their opinion of him, it's the scenario he's placed upon. And you could get a super babyface response one week, heel the next week, and that's not the worst thing. But I feel a lot of when like Adam Copeland was first coming up pre-Lita and everything, and it was like an audience that liked this guy but didn't love this guy, disliked this guy but they didn't hate this guy. It was sort of like these middling emotions, and I think that's where Damian Priest is right now. I don't think you've had that. Like the defining moment of this guy's run so far has been overcoming adversity at Clash at the Castle, when he got trapped in the ropes and powered his way to finish the match. Like that seems to have been like the memorable moment so far of these 2 months, was him finishing that match.
And I don't think they played that up enough, to emphasize, I think, what ultimately like a heroic sort of moment that was, right? Yeah, absolutely. I think like by this point we can probably assess the Damian Priest run as like okay, like he's doing, the performer is doing everything that I think he's being asked of, but like it's not special to the level that I think, the standard of like a Cody or like a Roman Reigns or a lot of people like in that upper echelon. At the same time, first title runs are often this sort of level, like, I don't know, like how many title runs did Roman Reigns need in order to get to the level that he's at? Like, I don't think like the company certainly would look at him like, too differently coming off of this, but like, is it acceptable for a first title run, I guess?
Again, it's been fine, and you certainly are like, certainly he has not been a detriment to Raw or for, like, again, like it's, I don't think this is the guy that is moving numbers, but he's certainly not hindering them either. So like, it's just, it feels like incomplete. Like he's fine in the role, but I think people are ready to kind of have something more to really sink their teeth into this character, that, something like, we compare where Drew was a year ago to now. It's night and day in terms of, fine performer, good speaker, but now it's.
But Drew's another name. Like when he had his first title run, did he achieve like, like the comparisons that I think we're trying to, put on Damian Priest right now?
It was really tough, because I really felt he was starting to hit that. And it was that last Raw in front of crowds. It was like in Brooklyn, and man, they went nuts for him in a segment with Brock. And then boom, it's like you didn't have crowds, and that was the question, was like, when crowds come back, are we going to see? And Drew was kind of in a lower role at that point, and didn't feel like he was a top level guy. He felt like he was the next rung below, and that's kind of where I feel Damian Priest is right now. Like, that's not a bad position to be in, but you are going to have that pressure when you're in this title picture. And I mean, he does have a full summer of programs set up for him, and I think you'll get a better kind of grading for him by the end of this summer and where he is.
I like this comment from John Taylor in the chat room. This is the part of his future documentary where Damian talks about his first title run being underwhelming and he didn't figure himself yet until his second run. Could be true, but you know, the idea of like a character not figuring themselves out, I think, is kind of evident with Damian Priest. I would agree. Just as the way it's been for a lot of people when they win their first championships. They're the company's chosen guys, but they're not fully realized yet.
I'm just picturing the documentary segment where it's like, man, they were just putting me in roles that you would never see a champion in, and then we cut to, enjoy your video games, guys.
That's something Kevin Nash would say for sure.
The check cleared. Rollins comes out and plugs the Royal Rumble. Man, we got a lot out of that opening line from Damian Priest. So he says that he doesn't believe Priest when he says that Seth won't win the title again, and you're filling things in with false bravado or showing that. He says your actions and your words don't line up. You say all the right things about not wanting anyone's help, but then in both of your title defenses, you got help from the Judgment Day and CM Punk that helped you stay with the title. And with that, after like he did this like babyface introduction, boom, this is what I mean. The whole crowd starts chanting, "You suck," at Damian Priest. All it took was like a simple little like gust of wind, and the house of cards falls in terms of this audience's loyalty to Damian Priest. They hate this guy now. Priest says he never asked for help. Rollins represents the past, which I found amusing given like he's the older of the two, but I guess maybe in main event years, he's the younger one. Rollins has his challenge for Money in the Bank, and he puts up a side bet where he says, if I lose to you, Priest, I will never challenge you again for the championship, which great thing that we have multiple world titles in this company. And if I win, you leave the Judgment Day. And Damian Priest comes back and says, the Judgment Day need me a lot more than I need them, and shakes on it. They agree to the side bet, which I guess it's just their word that is going to hold this up. I mean, Cody Rhodes was probably telling Seth, hey, make sure it's only during this title reign. Don't make it indefinite.
Yeah, I think that's I think it'd be too ridiculous to believe if like Rollins put up his entire career he can't challenge for a title, right?
Just for this reign.
Yeah, I think it's a really good stipulation. You know, like it adds an extra level of intrigue to a match that I think I was already pretty intrigued by, and it does put the story of Damian Priest's loyalty to the Judgment Day into focus. And they're really ramping up the idea that he would be leaving, or that I guess he could get turned on, you know, as a result of this entire Liv Morgan, Finn Balor, Dominic Mysterio thing. And I find the result of this Money in the Bank match at this point kind of tough to predict. I know, like, we were discussing this maybe when the match was announced, and I think a lot of people were still on the side of like Damian Priest retaining, but I think you can't discount Rollins at this point, because I think, for one thing, Rollins versus Günter is a bigger match, you know, for really any market. And I think it's a bigger win for Günter to beat Rollins than it is for Damian Priest. Also, it would satisfy Priest leaving the Judgment Day and just kind of like, you know, lead to that story very easily. But when I think more about it, like, I don't think Priest is the type of character, if he's supposed to be a babyface, who should be forced out of the Judgment Day. Like, I think he should be kicked out, or he should willingly quit. So that might lead me a bit more towards Priest winning. That's all to say, I like the stipulation because it adds a bit more intrigue.
Who wins the side bet if Drew were to cash in and make this a three-way and then he wins? Do they both get out of the side bet?
I think they both would lose, right? Well, okay, so if Priest isn't champion anymore, then Rollins could challenge, so I guess he doesn't lose the side bet.
and then
Priest would have to leave the Judgment Day. Wait, no. Seth said if I win.
Yeah, he said if I win, and he wouldn't win.
You're right. I guess it's moot then.
And then we have the return of Günter in his navy blue suit. And man, if the camera shoots him at the right angle, I swear he's slowly becoming Julius Creed. I mean, he is
okay.
This guy is so much smaller than I remember this guy walking out SummerSlam weekend in Toronto, where he was easily like every bit of like 300 pounds and just coming out in that like his black trunks here in Toronto.
Remember when we saw him against PCO at Spring Break?
Yes.
What a great match that was.
Yes.
My first time seeing Walter live, he looks like a completely different man, you know. But I like modern Walter Günter, you know, like I like GQ Günter, you know, like he is successful.
What about GQ PCO?
I would love that too. There's another level to PCO, I'm sure, somewhere in there. But I think so clearly Ginny is dressing this guy, and she's doing a great job of it. Okay, because like the man looks great in the suits, and like the ankle socks with the brown sort of a loafer type of things.
He looks so tiny here, like next to these two. Like
Seth
is not the biggest man in the world, but he looks, just from this angle, he looks like he's like twice the size of this guy. You
understand the concept of perspective, right, John? Like he's in the distance. The other two are closer to the camera.
I don't know. I don't even see Günter here. Is he even in the ring yet?
But to me, he doesn't appear any less scary, because I think like now he's got he's got his words, you know. He comes out, he does his lines, he kills it, drops the mic, and he leaves. I really did enjoy this appearance.
He said he respects both men, wishes them good luck. I can't wait to see your match, and may the better man win. But the better man between them will be the lesser man against me at SummerSlam.
Great line.
Great line.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then Michael Cole recaps the delivery of said VHS tape. They have tracked down a machine way, and we get the playing of this VHS tape. And it is Uncle Howdy speaking to someone off camera, asking if you are happy since the loss. Do you feel you have been forgotten? And it's revealed that Uncle Howdy is speaking with an unmasked Bo Dallas and asks, how did you feel when your brother died? And you get Bo Dallas explaining that the most important thing in his life was taken from him, and it was like nothing was ever going to matter again. He just wanted to be like Bray and wanted to be him, and he worked so hard to be alongside him, and we were there. We had it, and then it was taken from me, and there's no one that feels more hurt about his loss than me, and they wanted to forget about all of us. And you have him stating, we made them all remember, with Uncle Howdy stating, yes, we did. So this was quite something to see. And I think that you have to imagine that everyone is so focused on like the follow-up here, and this, like, they tapped right to kind of the heart of this story and the heart of this character and motivation of Bo Dallas. Mm-hmm. And you were able to inject something real into a story that is so far removed from anything realistic. And I have to say that I thought this was a really encouraging sign, and also one that in no way did I think anyone would feel was like exploitive in any way or tacky. It felt as though like everyone knows.
It directly answered those criticisms.
It's addressing, I think, like what everyone knows is the elephant in the room with this entire story and these characters, specifically the Bo Dallas character. So I thought this was really well done.
I thought this was really great too. I think most impressive is the way that they managed to frame this whole like Uncle Howdy, like Wyatt Six Guys within our reality. They're not hiding the fact that it's Bo Dallas. Everybody knows who he is. Everybody knows his relationship to his brother. And it's kind of presenting this sort of like weird character work as the subject of a man who's suffered from trauma at the loss of his brother, and a man who now wants to keep his brother's legacy alive by manifesting these very violent acts, you know. And I think this sort of like grounding of like all the Firefly Funhouse stuff within reality was something that I think Bray was probably working on, like in the latter stages of like his run. And we never got the reveal of Uncle Howdy. I have to think maybe this was where it was ultimately going to go a little bit, or at least this sort of like duality of like, here's the normal person, and then here are the characters that kind of manifest out of him. But I also really enjoyed this in a different way than I have the Bray Wyatt similar types of works, because I think with Bo's promo, it's far easier to understand than I think the typical Bray Wyatt type of promo, even when he's kind of speaking as his like a real life self. And at least tonight, I actually found this to be a lot more effective and easier to understand than a lot of the Bray Wyatt work in the past. It also directly, again, challenges the idea that this is somehow offensive for WWE to rehash it, with Bo giving like a really heartfelt reason about how personal this story is for him to finish, and if anybody has a right to do it, it's him. And he certainly made a very convincing argument. And I also love the way it was presented here, because it was shot and in this like sort of downgraded VHS quality. If they had presented this using their typical like Michael Cole sit down interview style, it wouldn't have come across nearly as, I think, interesting nor convincing. Ultimately, what you had here was a very good personal promo from Bo Dallas, or Bo Wyatt, whatever he's going to be called, which, like, in tone and sort of theme, isn't entirely dissimilar to the Jeff Jarrett promo about Owen Hart. He's speaking about somebody very close to him that he lost, and wanting to carry on some sort of goal in memory of that person. You can, despite all the dressing of the sort of mysticism around this, you can tell this was a very personal promo from Bo Dallas, and a very effective one, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, this to me struck a much different chord than our massacre to end the show last week. But I thought, for a follow up, I thought this was, I was pleasantly surprised that they had something like this to come out of it. And then we go to Wai Ting's feud of the year. It is the New Day and the Final Testament. Kofi Kingston versus Karrion Kross. And Kingston immediately hits a dive to the floor, and then Kross lifts him up. DVD, we go to the break, come back, and Kingston is going for the boom drop and sets up for the Trouble in Paradise when Paul Ellering appears on the screen asking, "Is it worth it?" I'm like, nothing is worth this program. And we see the Final Testament beating down Xavier Woods in the back. I was like, all these guys came out and were in their corners. Well, how did they get back so quickly? They just got bored of this match and went to the back during the commercial?
I guess so. Who could?
They all came out.
They do a lot of headlocks during those commercials.
I guess they were like, okay, we're out of here. Yeah. So Kingston goes to leave the ring, but this leads to Karrion Kross, and he too has a finisher. It is the Final Prayer, and he hits it and wins in 5 minutes and 48 seconds.
Yeah. Kross is now also doing like a counting gimmick where, like, at the end of this match, he really emphasized the number 7. And I think Cole said it was what the amount of champions he's beaten, he's taken out. Has he really taken out anybody?
Yeah. There was a lot of like fan created storylines for this guy that he was like retweeting, where it was like he took away Shinsuke Nakamura's inhibitions, and because he turned heel later after their feud, and it's like, and he did this to this guy and this guy. I'm like, this is all some really clever stuff. It's like these guys I feuded with had storylines of their own afterwards, and I'm going to claim authorship of these new desired traits for those characters in their changes after their time with me.
Yeah, it's very creative. He was basically anybody he's ever faced, he somehow got a win over in his own twisted, weird logic. So
maybe he's going after that streak that Sid started to go after Goldberg's, where he just had to like powerbomb people or choke slam them, and that counted as one.
Yeah. All right. Okay. This was not a great week for this feud, in my opinion. I think
they've been on such a strong run.
Well, listen, I at least think this feud has a lot of potential, just given like the type of storytelling they're doing with Woods and Kofi, trying to drive a wedge between them. But this week, I mean, it's probably going to serve for a bigger segment later on, but pretty forgettable this week.
Okay, so next week it starts at.
Yeah.
There was a recap of SmackDown and Jacob Fatu's debut, and they announced Cody, Orton, and Kevin Owens against the Bloodline in a 6-man tag, although we don't know which 3 of the 4 Bloodline members are in this match. They just put all 4 up on the graphic. And to be fair, they also had Paul Heyman up there, so you never know. But yes, they did specify 3-on-3.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Raw, next week in Boston, we have 2 qualifying matches. As we mentioned, Sheamus, Drew McIntyre, and Ilya Dragunov, which sounds great. Dakota Kai, Zoe Stark, and Ivy Nile. Ray versus Dominic in a rematch from last year's WrestleMania, and Liv Morgan defending the women's title against Zelina Vega. But now it was time for the main event, going head-to-head with the final minutes of Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. It's The Miz and R-Truth against Finn Balor and JD McDonough for the tag titles. Liv Morgan comes out as they go to break, and they're in control of R-Truth. Dom and Carlito come down, and Miz gets the tag, and he's just running roughshod here, tossing Carlito over the desk, hits a high cross on JD, a lung blower, double DDT, and then there is a skull-crushing finale to JD, but Carlito puts the foot on the rope. So Miz grabs Carlito by the hair, and this prompts Braun Strowman to run down and chase Carlito out of the arena. Truth and Balor are in, and Truth gets the STF. Both men are down. He hits a 10-knuckle shuffle to both JD and Balor when Liv gets onto the apron, distracting R-Truth, and hugs him before snapping his throat on the top rope and is prone for a shotgun drop kick and coup de grace as Finn Balor pins R-Truth, and we have new tag champions in 11:31. And Michael Cole, after an hour and a half of going solo, decided, I'm going for it. I'm going to end this show with this line. Is Liv Morgan becoming the Judgment Day's Yoko Ono? Yeah, I said it. This guy's just this is his retirement years. Okay?
What would Vince have said?
What are you going to do? Fire me? I'm out of... This guy's just out of control.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Good match. I thought it was good booking here. You know, let's be honest. Like, Truth and Miz didn't really provide much to these tag team titles.
What was your favorite match of this run?
Give me a you know, none of them, honestly. Like, they didn't really provide much other than that initial pop. The problem is, like, great moment when they won, I suppose, but they're not even like an attractive pay-per-view level wrestling act. They're fine TV wrestling act, but even then, like, these days, I think you just have to like deliver a bit more like, I don't know, special quality. They're great devices in a comedic sort of like, I don't know, role, but as champions, I was ready for these to move on, and they found a good opportunity to take them off of them with this entire Liv Morgan storyline that I think has been going really well here. You know, this shot of Liv Morgan standing next to JD and Balor with the championships, somewhat reminiscent of, like, you know, when the Judgment Day were dominating with Rhea Ripley and whoever as tag team champions at the time. And I imagine at this point, maybe a visual they'll be going for similarly, but a very effective way to progress Liv's very slow takeover of the Judgment Day as we continue to tease the idea of Damian Priest possibly leaving the group.
So there you have it. Yeah, I like this direction of putting the belts on these two. I continue to enjoy a lot of the Liv Morgan Judgment Day stuff that they are doing. So that was the end of the show. And overall, your thoughts on Raw as a whole? I
enjoyed Raw. You know, I think the storytelling is like not just coherent, but in many cases, I think interesting. And then we have a full card for Judgment Day. We have our teases for SummerSlam with Günter and whoever else, and videos like the Wyatt family follow-up. I think was my biggest question heading into tonight, and I'm very optimistic about the direction that they introduced tonight.
All right, we've gone really late, so we're going to make some time for your feedback. So we're heading on over to forum.postwrestling.com. Unless Way's entire AC fund has been fulfilled already.
Well, again, I want to give a special thank you to John Taylor, Dickie Bird, Pete in Texas for and MJ for putting in money for my car fund. I'm not going to be using it towards that, but it will be going into the post wrestling you know, giant vault of gold.
We're okay if you embezzle. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay. But we also have some questions here from Rob Bahari. Rob sends $5. Thank you very much, Rob. He says, "Hi, John. Should Connor McDavid demand a trade to the Leafs if he ever wants to live his dream of winning the Stanley Cup? I'll hang up and listen.
If Connor McDavid is even suggesting such an idea, let me tell you, you can live your dream with any other market. You want your dream to go and die, then by all means, you call up Brendan Shanahan and state, where do dreams die? And he'll tell you it's right downtown off of Union Station. Okay, that's what I would tell Connor McDavid. Stay as far away from this cursed franchise as you possibly can. You made it to Game 7. You were within a goal. You know how many times the Leafs have made it? You know the last time that a team came back to win the Stanley Cup down 3-0? Toronto Maple Leafs, 1942. Okay.
Oh wow.
So, listen.
How do you know that date?
We were just born in the wrong century to be Maple Leafs fans, but I live in the present, and I know that this team, they are allergic to success. Stay away, Connor. Stay away.
I think you should stay away from the Scotiabank Arena next week. I don't know if they're going to allow you in that building.
Because they wouldn't know what to do with the success that that my aura protrudes. Okay.
My goodness. Thank you, Rob.
You could have get a touch of like a winner here walking into your doors.
Rob, I hope you got what you paid for. I think he knew what he was doing. Let's go to Jake from the Windy City, who sends $10. Thank you very much, Jake. He says, all the WCW docs and books over the years, the one point of view I wish we could have heard from is Ted Turner himself. I would have loved to hear why wrestling meant so much to him in the first place.
He's in like his health, I just think would not allow. First of all, I think it'd be really tough to nail down a Ted Turner, but I mean he is a very private figure now. I think just based on like health concern, I don't think he could even do an interview. I think the fact they had his son was the extent of like I just don't think you're going to be seeing Ted Turner doing any kind of public interviews at this point, period.
And this is not a super chat, but I wanted to signal this out because I did ask earlier for hopefully a female listener's opinion to what we were discussing about Zelina and Liv Morgan. And Lady B says, as a female wrestling fan, I find this Liv storyline in the era of the Vince lawsuit strange, but I can get over it. I just want to see Liv wrestle. Need to prove why she's champion in the ring. She also says, I do like the Mariah, Tony, and Mina storyline because there's wrestling. Women can be involved in romance storylines, but it would be great if there was more than that with storytelling in the ring.
Well, I think with the Liv Morgan story, like, yeah, we have talked about this. Like, this championship has kind of been on hold, but like you have this big match that all of this stuff, it's not just being done to kill time on television. Like all of this is building towards a big return for Rhea Ripley with the automatic match. Like this is all serving a function to lead to a big match at the end of all of this. So I don't think it's being done without that purpose. And I mean, you can look and certainly state that this women's division has been, it's not ripe with a ton of challengers, but I think they're doing a very effective job with Liv, and they are building to a bigger match that rather than just, putting her in different storylines that are just keeping busy. And then boom, Rhea comes back and there's no angle attached. You're starting from scratch. They are not starting from scratch. She can come back and that place is going to explode when she comes out and gives Liv a riptide. And you have all the Dominic stuff at that point.
Yeah. But I still feel like, especially like, because we aren't exactly that far removed, I think, from, memories of women's, divas era wrestling where it was strictly just sort of like this sort of backstage build and then getting a match at the pay-per-view, or at least like a 2-minute match on a TV, where I think it's that much more important for especially the female like champion of a brand to be a bit more consistent with in-ring performances, even if it comes at, with like heel sort of like finishes and cheating finishes. I still like feel like that it might at least be a criticism that I could see some people having. And Lady B, thank you very much for chiming in and offering your thoughts.
Yeah, I would just look like Liv to me though has like, she's become like a main character on the show. And I'm not so much just looking at like minutes in the ring. I'm looking at like minutes on the show, quality ones where like this show is like, if you are listing like who are the key performers on the show, Liv Morgan is now in that realm. And it hasn't been too often that we have like Rhea Ripley was kind of in that role too, and you had the same thoughts too, where like the division kind of felt like it took a back seat to Rhea's title reign. But the byproduct,
but she had credibility.
Yeah,
and Liv does not. Now, I guess Liv's credibility comes in the form of like her ability to manipulate. But I'd like to see that play out in like a wrestling way as well, occasionally at least, and maybe we're gonna get that clearly next week.
All right, let's go to the forum. We start off with Brian. Some fun stuff here. It's probably been longer than we realized, but Liv Morgan is the leading lady of the show. I think she's been fantastic in this role, meddling with the Judgment Day, while we also see Priest splinter away. JD's trip in the main event and Miz unloading on him made me laugh. Surprised they went there on the Wyatt 6 tape. After a week to digest it, I think they'll be fine as a spooky stable if they leave any magic in pre-tapes and out of the ring and aren't invincible in matches like The Fiend was. Nice to know the rumors of Chad Gable's demise were greatly exaggerated, but I don't see more than a one-off match for him, the Creed brothers, and Ivy Nile against the Wyatt 6. In the midst of all this fictional storytelling, we get the trailer for the WrestleMania documentary implying everything is inherently scripted. Oh, well. Well, I mean...
Well, what do you mean? What do you mean by
I think he's talking about like within the context of the show of having a documentary that...
Oh.
I mean, I don't know how many people really have an issue with that anymore. Like, I can understand that, but it's... I mean, it is what it is. And I think a lot of people are going to be intrigued by that rather than turned off by it.
Like, we're all sophisticated enough to know, like, what's... Anyway, whatever. Like, we can go deeper with this, Brian. Is the documentary actually, like, can you truly believe the words of Dwayne Johnson and Cody Runnels in this documentary, or are they working you there? I mean, in wrestling, you never really know. So who's really playing 4D chess here, okay?
If you swerve them, you've done your job.
That's it. Jeremy in Texas, what a Raw tonight. We got to finally see Chad Gable with the Creeds. We got a very, very real interview with Taylor Rotunda to explain the motivation behind the Wyatt 6. And we even got a release date for the WrestleMania documentary. It seems they may be setting up some kind of Liv involvement in the world title match at Money in the Bank, with the stipulation added since Damian has been the most vocal against her helping the group. But back to that VHS tape. Can it ever get too real for a storyline? Granted, the best storylines are based in reality, but it hit a little different when we heard the motivation behind the new group and the references to Bray. Can it get too real? When it becomes tasteless, yeah, but I don't think it's got there yet. Certainly not from this. Not in my opinion.
Yeah. It wasn't some like flippant remark like the one I go back to is with Charlotte Flair and Paige, where Paige just like brings out like the comment about her younger brother dying just like out of nowhere in the context of this. And even worse was that Ric Flair was watching this and had no heads up about it either. And it was clearly just a line that was there to be shocking. And that was the sole purpose of this. This is not being done to be shocking. This has been like, you can tell the amount of work that has gone into this. And I mean, this is largely like, he's a member of this group. Like, to not call it out is almost like avoiding what is like the central cause of like these characters and like their motivations, in particular, Bo Dallas. Like, again, I was by no means turned off by this or had any kind of,
I was turned on by it.
Okay. Well,
like I liked it. I thought it was a good wrestling segment. Yes.
All right, let's continue on with Muggin. The Wyatt 6 had a stunning debut, and the follow-up was a home run. Bo Dallas was poignant in the pseudo-therapy session with Uncle Howdy. Braun and Kaiser was solid. It was a display of Braun's versatility by working babyface. Liv's puppeteering of the Judgment Day paid off, as she was the reason that they're tag champions again. Dom's still keeping her at arm's length. Priest is the only one amongst them with some integrity, and him against Seth got some added stakes that could lead to his exit for the group. Big ups to Michael Cole for calling the rest of the show on his own.
We go up next to Annie, who says, excellent episode of Raw. Drew cut one of the best promos of his career. What started as banter on social media really kicked into gear with the irony of Punk using the cast Drew inflicted on him to take away the moment that would have validated Drew's character dating back to being Pandemic Champion. What's followed since has tied into both the social media and trolling themes cutely and into Drew's frustrations that everyone in WWE is delighted to have Punk back despite their history. Comfortably the best feud in wrestling at the moment, and it could challenge Cody's chase for feud of the year if it comes together during the final stretch. Raw spent the post-Mania season getting new characters over. As a result, the likes of Liv, Braun, Dragunov, and even Kaiser feel like they're ready to play a big role as the SummerSlam build starts to come together. Very good booking. My worry with the Wyatts is that even if you give them sophisticated origin stories, they're ultimately still doing the Nikki Cross crawling to the ring and the characters being scared of them. Yeah, I will say, like, I thought the Nikki crawling was I thought it came across a little bit corny. And like, but what if they explain that? Okay, we acknowledge this is all special effects and this is just a person playing this character, but the violence is real. Okay, the beatdowns are real.
Maybe they'll explain that in the Wyatt Six Behind the Curtain documentary.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, we go to Jordan from the Bronx. The production behind the Wyatt Six has been stellar. Giving Taylor Rotunda the freedom and space to express his emotions is beautiful. I wonder if the rest of the members will receive similar treatment. However, as great as that segment was, I'm not a fan of spooky gimmicks in the slightest. It's a suspension of disbelief that's hard to do for me. Will Abby the Witch ever challenge for the women's title? Does Ramblin' Rabbit ever compete in the Royal Rumble? The Wyatt universe would be amazing on a show like Lucha Underground, where there were plenty of fantasy gimmicks to go around. It was fun to watch Fiend segments, but hard to watch Fiend matches. I'm struggling to see how the Wyatt Six will work in a much more grounded WWE.
These are very well articulated concerns from Jordan, and I'm sure people who feel the same way. We've kind of yet to see that. We've yet to see how this new group will, perform in matches. I really hope by this point they've learned from the various mistakes that they've committed with, the Bray Wyatt runs, and they'll find a way to balance it all while maintaining like this sort of mysticism of this group. So we shall see. That's still a big question. Let's go lastly to Matthew, who says, I thought this was a good Raw overall. I do like the humanistic presentation they're giving Bo Dallas. My biggest gripe with the Wyatt Six is the supernatural aspect. I'm still interested to see how they present them in the ring, and I am reserving judgment till then. When do we think Roman returns? I personally thought next week in Madison Square Garden would be a good time. Isn't that this Friday?
It's Friday.
Yeah, but surely they will announce that ahead of time to draw a rating. My suspicions are now higher with the Bloodline ceremony being advertised, but you could also hold him off longer. The longer they hold him off, the more over he can be upon return. What do you think, John?
I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I would think, like, yeah, the next couple of weeks, like if you're targeting SummerSlam to be your big show, I think like you would want several weeks in advance of that. They certainly have like a big show, and they have the segment to do it on Friday. I'm not even that like when you're in this kind of state, like I don't even think the worst idea is like he can come back as a surprise to end the show, and then the next week you tune in to see, to hear him talk. Like I think that's totally fine. Like, that's one way to go.
What do you think of the rumor of Cody versus Solo Sikoa as the Money in the Bank match? But that, hold on a second. That was they announced a 6-man, so I guess it can't be.
No. This is the 6-man's Money in the Bank.
Yes, that's what I mean. Oh, sorry, yeah, I meant SummerSlam. Yeah, SummerSlam.
Yes. I mean, it's like all of this is directing towards that, and last Friday was the indication of that. I think it's a big match for Solo Sikoa for sure.
It tells me Roman doesn't come back until at the earliest SummerSlam,
or he's coming back, and like Solo's going to be at the end of the road for him and not necessarily like the first opponent back.
Well, Solo is busy for SummerSlam.
Well, that's what I'm stating. Yeah. I think you could still have Roman attached to the show, even if he's not involved in this match.
We'll see.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we are going to be back Tuesday. Again, the Evan Husney interview will be out Tuesday morning, and then Wayra and I are up Tuesday night, 11 Eastern at postwrestlingcafe.com for the double shot, chatting about episode number 4 of the series, the finale of Who Killed WCW. And then we've got all of our regular shows throughout the week, including Pollock and Thurston and Rewinded Dynamite coming at you on Wednesday. And one final mention for the cash-in coming up on Saturday, July the 6th in Toronto. Wide Open is where we are going to be. 139A Spadina Avenue, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, several hours before Money in the Bank, about 15 minutes away from the Scotiabank Arena, the home of the great Toronto Raptors. And we will be hanging out with all of you. So tickets are free. You can go
there are no tickets.
That's it. Just show up, and we'll let you in. Unless we, I don't know, hold a grudge, which we don't. So you're all
unless you're a Leafs fan, then you could stay.
If you wear a jersey, like just get the hell out of here. We'll have Florida Panthers shirts for like just to put on over top. Champions. All right, that's it for us. We've gone super late. It's a fun one. Way's got to go work on his car, and I am going to sleep. So goodbye, everyone. Go Panthers.